The Apostle Paul's rebuke is quite profound when he rebuked Peter concerning this whole concept of allowing the Gentiles to come into the faith, and Peter not wanting to sit and eat with them. But the thing that really amazes me is that Barnabas also took part of this. And the apostle, he just told them to their face. He said, "You're being hypocritical." And when I read this, I go, wow, these are human people who have human disagreements. You see, the thing is that it's very clear that there are people with carnal and spiritual. We have a carnal side, we have a spiritual side. The Spirit of God tells us that we need to walk in the Spirit. That's how we should conduct ourselves. Unfortunately, we are also carnal. And many times we find ourselves subject to the carnal. And that's why the Apostle Paul says, I've got to crucify the old man. I got to rebuke him because the old man wants to rule and reign in my life. But I need to be walking in the Spirit. This is why we find recorded Galatians chapter number 2, the very last part of verse 16. He says, by the works of the law shall no man be justified. Well, that takes us to this truth, that when we come to Christ, this born-again experience that Jesus talked about there in the 3rd chapter of John, when Nicodemus asked that question, he says, how do you do these miracles? And Jesus began to explain to him about being born again. And he talks about the contrast between the spiritual man and the natural man, and you don't come to faith in the natural man. Cannot happen. It's an awakening. It's something that happens in your spirit when your spirit becomes aware and you embrace the spiritual person that you are. And that's when this process of growing in our walk, growing in our spiritual man, learning how to walk in the Spirit, all of this that is given to us through the work of the ministry of the Holy Spirit of God, whom Jesus said, he says, I will send him to you. And it talks about how that the Holy Spirit will be able to minister to your heart and bring you into the presence of God. And from the presence of God, he can bring you what God has for you back to you. It's an incredible thing. But you see, all of this comes by revelation. As God begins to reveal more and more of himself to us, and our spiritual understanding becomes greater. And that way we don't walk just because we have some words to go by, but we walk because the Spirit of God is prompting us and leading us. Thus, the spiritual walk. This is Pastor Jack King with the gospel on the radio broadcast.